So where exactly does Kegan Kline, if at all, fit into this equation regarding Richard Allen and the Delphi murders? Now, recently I've taken a look back at the police interview conducted with Kegan Kline back in 2020. I just want to highlight a few points regarding that police interview that at least stuck out to me personally. Now, almost immediately after the detectives have got the formalities out of the way, they approach the subject of trading or sharing CSAM. They're basically saying, we've recovered your devices, we've looked through all of your devices, and you've been trading images or trading material. So straight away, they're putting this idea out there that this isn't just a case of Kegan Kline going on the dark net or searching for stuff on the surface web. They immediately approach the subject of trading or sharing material. So it at least gives me the impression early on, at the very earliest point of this interrogation or interview, whichever you want to call it, that they're not just looking solely here at Kegan Kline. There's more than one individual involved, pretty much right off the bat here. And then it moves on to some discussion regarding the trip to Vegas. Now, many of you will have heard about this and discussed this in depth, I would imagine. But they're really interested in what took place during that trip to Vegas. The trip with Tony and Kegan Kline. Where did you stay? What did you do? How did you earn money? Where were you renting? How much did it cost? A lot of in-depth discussion regarding their trip to Las Vegas. Now, during this talk regarding the trip to Vegas, they really start to turn the screw on Kegan Kline here regarding his father, regarding Tony Kline. And considering nothing has happened to Tony Kline and what has happened subsequently with this arrest of Richard Allen just recently, I'm starting to believe that this was an intentional tactic by the police during this investigation. That they realised that Kegan and his dad were very close. So they also realised that someone else was using these devices. They don't necessarily believe it's Tony Kline. But what better way to extract that information from Kegan Kline than to apply immense pressure, almost suggesting point blank without actually saying it, that this is your dad. Your dad has also accessed these devices. Your dad, the one who's at home right now, whilst you're in custody. Your dad, he's the person who has been accessing these devices. He's the person who's been talking to these girls alongside you. That's right, isn't it? And I think what they're trying to do there is put him in a corner where he actually has to reveal the true other user of these devices or other users. And as I say, the more you look back into this story, the more that you realise that actually nothing whatsoever has happened to Tony Kline. He hasn't been arrested. He hasn't been charged with anything. Yet they're really strongly suggesting in this interview that there's a second user. It's your dad. Basically that's what they're saying to him without actually using that exact phrase. So the fact that, as I say, nothing has happened to him tells me that this may well have been a preconceived tactic by law enforcement. Now, some people may say, well, Kegan Kline wouldn't grass, he wouldn't snitch on other people, but actually we know that's not the case, because during this interview, he's already trying to blame his friend, the guy in Vegas. My other friend had access to this phone. He had my PIN code. We did loads of drugs together. I was probably out of it. He may have been using my phone. So it's not beyond him to grass on people or to rat on people or snitch on people. It's not beyond him. He's very, very capable of doing that. So what would be the reason to not bring up a user if that user was in fact Richard Allen? So before we get into any potential connection between Kegan and Richard Allen, let's just continue on as to what happens next in this police interview. So we have the discussion regarding the Vegas trip. What did you do? What did you spend? How did you earn your money? Who did you meet there? Who did you stay with? Who had access to your mobile devices? And then we move on to Emily Ann 45. The detective basically just drops this into the conversation. Emily Ann 45, what do you know about this account? Did you create this account? Very straight away, they're pinning him down to being the sole creator or the person who actually physically created that account. Did you create this account? He said yes, he did. And they then basically say, well, this Emily Ann 45 account has a big story behind it, doesn't it? It's a big persona. And Kegan almost seems a little bit surprised by this. He sort of pulls back a little bit and tries to kind of distance himself a little bit. It's years ago now since all this happened, and I was quite young at the time. Basically tries to downplay it a little bit. But the detectives are basically having none of it. They then start talking about communications between two accounts, Emily Ann 45 and I hope I pronounced this correctly, Hannah Rossell, I believe it's called, 2 accounts, and they basically say straight away, we believe that these accounts that are named as have female names, basically, they're actually being used by 2 men. So you've got 2 accounts in the names of females. You have Emily Ann 45 and Hannah Rossell. We believe that there's 2 accounts there, but they're both being used by men, exchanging and trading material. It then follows on from that brief bit of conversation to them discussing the Dropbox. Your Dropbox, Kegan. We've got your Dropbox here, we've got your telephones that are in your name, we've got your social media accounts that are in your name, all associated to emails which have been created by you in your name, same as the devices that you are using. Everything basically is in your name. So you've been exchanging and sharing this material from your Emily Ann 45 account and uploading it onto your Dropbox. Immediately he refutes this. No, what are you talking about? I've never had a Dropbox in my life. Oh, actually, yeah, I probably have had one. We've got to remember here, it's almost impossible to decipher what is the truth and what is a pack of lies when looking at Kegan Kline in general regarding his conversations or a police interview. 1 minute he could be telling the truth, he could be saying he's 1,000% honest, but we don't know, do we? He's told so many lies, it's, as I say, almost impossible to decipher what exactly is the truth and what exactly is a pack of lies. But certainly something to pick up upon here is that everything, absolutely everything, concerning this police interview, concerning the devices, the accounts, the email addresses, the Dropbox links, everything has his name on it. Even the stuff that he refutes using. Even the stuff that he says, well, I can't remember speaking to that girl, I can't remember using that phone, or I can't remember using that account. Everything has his name on it. So I'm wondering here, is there some kind of, not just the trading of material, but the trading, selling of devices, of accounts, of email addresses? Okay, you can use this phone. I've already uploaded it with my email address. It's got my email address. The phone is registered to me. You know, when we look at how he's conducted his other activities on his own devices, in terms of not using any security, not using any VPNs, he hasn't used a dark net, he hasn't tried to hide any of his illegal activities, shall we say. This guy clearly either didn't give a toss or was completely clueless as to what he was doing. So has he literally just said, look, use this phone, use this email address, everything's registered to me, you can use this for a fee, maybe a monthly subscription or a one-off payment, and that's basically what he's done. You know, he's rented out these devices or rented out these accounts for a fee. Now, something that tips me off to that is the fact that we had that iPhone, didn't we, that was never recovered. Well, it wasn't recovered on the first search of the Kline property. And I think a lot of us surmised at the time that this was because either Kegan Kline had hid it himself or Tony Kline had maybe slipped it into his pocket as he was somehow involved in all of this and he was hiding it from police, knowing what material was on there. But now that we have this extra third party involved in the murder, shall we say, this Richard Allen character, is it actually beyond the realms of possibility that he had the phone, that he had the iPhone and Kegan said, Christ, you better bring this phone back and I'm going to wipe it and then I'm going to hand it in to law enforcement? Could Richard Allen have been the person who was squirreling away, shall we say, this iPhone that was not recovered during the first search of the Kline property? Where was that phone? Who had it in their possession? Now, moving back to the trip to Vegas for one last time, there's some discussion about a Samsung phone being found in a car. He hands this in, he said he found it, yet it's named with his name on it, with Kegan Kline. I think it's Kegan Kline Photography. I may be wrong when I say that, but it's definitely named or listed under his name. So, you know, I don't believe that for 1 second. But a lot of people have put out this idea that there was possibly some kind of film made of the murders that was a trip to Vegas to sell this film on this phone. And I tell you what, right, I don't believe for one moment that anybody on planet Earth would be that dense and that stupid to hand in a phone, even if they factory reset it, even if they've smashed it with a sledgehammer and run over it with a bloody tank. I don't care what you've done with that phone. No one in their right mind is going to hand in a phone that has had that video or a video of those murders on that device at some point in time. Nobody. Because at the end of the day, the person who hands in that phone, Kegan Kline, he has absolutely no idea of what the recovery capabilities are of law enforcement in terms of recovering digital data, recovering media files, no one would put themselves at that risk of handing in a phone with the murders, even if it's been factory reset, deleted, wiped, whatever, sprayed in bloody bleach. I don't care. I don't care what you've done with that phone. You would never in a million years hand in a phone that at one point in time had a video of a murder on it. Unless, of course, you are a complete moron, which, we can't discount the possibility of that, at least where Kegan Kline is concerned. So this trip to Vegas, there is the possibility there that this whole trip was to sell CSAM, was to sell devices, was to sell possibly a film, which was taken of the murders. I don't doubt that for 1 second, but I certainly don't believe that the actual video that contained the murders, if that actually happened, was returned to the police or handed in to the police. I just don't believe it's any one of those devices that would have taken that video, if in fact it was taken at all. Obviously, this is pure speculation on not just my behalf, but a lot of people that believe that idea or that theory that there was a video taken that day that Abigail Williams and Liberty German were murdered. So then we move on to the everlasting question. Is there a connection between Kegan Kline and Richard Allen? Now, for me personally, and again, I always speak from my own personal viewpoint. I'm not here to convince anybody. I'm not here to say that my opinion is factual. It's literally just that. It's just my opinion. But my opinion is that I find it very difficult, very, very difficult to believe that there is absolutely no connection here between the Klines and Richard Allen. For one, we had Kegan Kline appearing very early on the police radar. His house was searched. They retrieved these devices. He subsequently failed a polygraph test by all accounts. And then we have the trip to Vegas, the very curious search terms, the listening back to the voice of the man on the bridge. Bearing in mind, this is supposed to be a trip for him and his dad to enjoy themselves, go and get, see some strippers, smoke a bit of weed, live the life. But that's not what's taking place during this little trip. He's researching the murders. He's looking at newspaper articles, tips pour in for Delphi killings. He's listening to the voice clip over and over again of the man on the bridge. He's using such search terms as how long does DNA last on a body. He's searching for photos of Sandy Hook victims, very strange. And all of this would be quite suspicious in normal circumstances. But the fact that you've got a guy here who has already communicated with one of the deceased girls, he's already known to be sharing images. This isn't a lone wolf, a person on his own who's sat in his bloody dad's basement, going on the darknet or something like that. This is someone who is openly sharing and discussing indecent material with other men, other males, other male individuals. So already you have not just one individual concerned in this, you have more than one, although they don't actually touch upon who those individuals are in Kegan Kline's police interview. And also bear in mind, he was also searching such search terms as, can law enforcement trace you via IPs, via social media, or something along those lines. So clearly here, there was a big concern from Kegan Kline that something could lead back to him. And I don't just think it was the communication between himself and Liberty German. I believe that there's every possibility here that there's a deeper connection, a connection between himself and Richard Allen. Was Richard Allen the user at some point in time of the Emily Ann 45 account? I think that is a distinct possibility also. Now for me, and again, just my own personal opinion, this is just my own viewpoint on this, I think that there is a very strong connection here between Kegan Kline and Richard Allen, or the Klines in general and Richard Allen. Could it have been, as I said earlier, this was simply a case of facilitating the meet between Richard Allen and these girls? Murder was never discussed, and the next thing that Kegan knows, oh my God, we've got 2 dead girls. I've been communicating with them. If this gets back to Richard, they're going to come looking for me. I had some involvement. I picked him up. I facilitated the meet. Is that where his concern originated from? Or was this all pre-planned? Was this just one step too far, one step further in this twisted game between these individuals? Just remember, as I said earlier, we're not looking at one person here. This is sharing of material, trading of material, potential trading and selling of devices themselves. This was a collective, not an individual working on his own. So if there is a connection between these individuals, the next question you're going to have is, why did it take so long? Why did it take so long to bring Richard Allen into custody? And I'm going to answer that for you. I'm going to try my best to answer that from you, at least from my own personal opinion. I have a friend, right? Okay, I have a friend, someone I've known a long time, who works in data recovery, forensic data recovery. Depending on how sophisticated Richard Allen may or may not have been in terms of computer usage, in terms of hiding his own identity online, that sort of stuff can take quite a long time to get through, quite a long time to actually crack. And maybe all they needed was the word from Kegan Kline. Maybe they simply couldn't find out who the user of these certain accounts were at certain times. Maybe they realised, okay, look, we've got Kegan Kline here, but he's not the only person using these accounts. Maybe they put pressure on Kegan Kline in terms of his dad, suggesting that his dad was a user, hoping that he would think, Christ, I don't want my dad roped into this. Okay, look, this is the guy who has been using these accounts also. But it took a long time to get there. It took a lot of breaking down of Kegan Kline to actually get that information out of him. The truth is, the only two things that we do know is that one, Kegan Kline had absolutely no idea about internet security and hiding his identity online. He either didn't care about it or he was completely and utterly clueless. The other point that we don't know, that is factual, we don't know how clued up Richard Allen was. We don't know if he had some ties to these accounts. We don't know if he was well versed in hiding his identity online. This was a guy that supposedly had a second identity. What levels did he go to actually protect himself online? And is that why it has taken so long for them to actually bring this individual into custody? Anyway, do leave your own thoughts and theories in the comments section below. If you're interested in the Delphi case or you wish to check out more from my channel, please do hit the subscribe button below. And as always, many thanks for joining me for this video. I look forward to seeing you all again for the next one. Take care. Cheers.